Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show for Friday. It is May the 23rd. It is a friendly Friday. We lost Steve last week, and we're getting him back. We're getting him back with red eyes because he spent time in the pool swimming this morning. You're getting me with red eyes because we had a thunderstorm last night, and I kept waking up thinking, is someone kicking down my door? Have all my mean comments finally come back to haunt me? Am I going to have to deal with that? That'll be fun. Other people are experiencing not good weeks. People who wanted to go to Harvard and pay full price, maybe even some Chinese spies. They're going to have a rough time. They're not going to be able to go there. Trump administration is doing some fun things with Harvard. I have about 11 stories where the word judge is in the headline. Got a little bit about the MAHA report. It's the first of its kind, and it's the first installment of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s kind of movement into this space, trying to get his first 100 days under his feet. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about a little bit about South Africa, mostly about the press lying about South Africa and everything else, because that's just what we do here. Let's see here. I think we've got a little bit of fun. We got a little bit of humor. Got a little bit of Mike Howell clips. Had a fun story from our friend Steve Baker, actually doing journalism, actually doing investigations. Go figure. Maybe some people in the FBI could take a tip from him since he's now investigating FBI agents. So that's all good stuff. We're going to get all of those things in a moment, and we're going to get Steve Friend on here briefly as well, or forthwith rather. Let's get started. There's my buttons. We're going to get started with a sponsor, and the sponsor that leads off the show today is My Patriot Supply. And we got a little different story for you today. Instead of the normal prepare like Kyle, today you can get for the next, 72 hours, go to mypatriotsupply.com/KYLE. Why is that? It's Memorial Day. It's more than just a long weekend. It's a time to remember those who sacrificed for our freedoms. I think a lot of us have friends who did that. If you guys have one, you know what I'm talking about. We're going to make sure that we're all doing our part to make sure that what they fought for and what they fought to protect is still safe. That means preparing for your family as well. Everybody does a Memorial Day sale, and My Patriot Supply is doing a special one. They're the company that we personally trust here in the Seraphin household to make sure that we have emergency food in case something were to happen. Their sale is the biggest of the season. Save up to 60%. That's 60% on emergency gear. So if there's something you've seen on their website that was interesting to you, emergency food kits, water filtration, off-the-grid power supply, et cetera, you can check them out. Preparedness is sort of your responsibility. It is the way that we keep the land free. If you guys want to do that and honor the memory of those out there, spending money is a thing that we're all going to do. So if you're going to go out there and prepare, it's a way to make sure that you don't panic. We always say that you can prepare instead of repair. So this is a way to get some peace of mind, and you can get it checked out. Again, it is mypatriotsupply.com/KYLE, and that is only for a short period of time. They're going to be using that website. The sale makes it more affordable than ever to go and get some of the stuff that you're looking at to protect your family and make sure you guys are squared away. If you've been thinking about doing it, now would be a good time. Link is in the show description, mypatriotsupply.com/KYLE. Stock up on anything that you guys need, and we're going to get started before this Memorial Day weekend with this Friendly Friday. Here we go. And I probably should bring on this guy, red eyes and all. Good morning, Mr. Steve Friend.
Good morning. I missed you, man. I've been rudderless because the Kyle Seraphin Show Friendly Friday is such a staple in my week. I don't know what day it is, what month it is. Is it still cutesy time? Is it 6 to 8 months? Or are we still in May going into Memorial Day weekend? I have no idea.
You saved up 2 days or 2 Friendly Fridays worth of rage and fury, but also with a smile. I appreciate that. It's good seeing you, bud.
Yeah, I mean, I have lots of rage. All I did was stare at the bottom of a pool for an hour, so that's not fun.
Are you injured, Steve Friend? Is that possible?
I may or may not have a broken bone in my leg, which if I was given the option of not further injuring it, I would rather run on a broken leg than stare at the bottom of a pool for an hour.
I've done both at the same time. I've run on a broken leg and then gone and stared at the bottom of the pool for a lot. That was part of my military experience.
Humble brag. Nicely done.
I know. We were talking earlier, and you're like, what goggles do the elite people wear? And I was like, Swedish goggles. And if you guys have never been a swimmer and you don't know what Swedish goggles are, they're the cheapest goggles. And They cost $10 or less. Believe it or not, when I was younger, you used to be able to get Swedish goggles for $2.99 a pair because you build them yourself. So you tie these tiny little strings and it's really helpful when you're younger, but you just yell at your kids when you're older because you're like, it doesn't work real well. And now all the Swedish goggles that are out there were produced when they were $2.99 a pair. So now that I buy them for $10, all the things they're not stretchy and elastic anymore. They're kind of like dry rotted.
They're basically IKEA goggles.
They're IKEA goggles, yeah.
Okay.
Well, isn't that what the Swedish are known for? Like,
yeah, of course.
They're like, we have these things. You build them yourself. Knives and yes. Man, do people still buy Swiss Army knives? I actually have a Swiss Army knife that one of my buddies' dads gave me when I graduated high school, and I don't know why he gave it to me because I already had, like pocket knives and stuff, and I still have it because that's the kind of guy I am. I just put it in a bag. When my kid gets old enough, he told me when he's a dad, he's going to have big knives, and I have like a bag of knives for my child.
My older son too is counting down the days until he's eligible to go get a pocket knife, which is
what is the age in the friend? What's
up
the age?
To Madam Friend, so 35.
Oh, dude, I think it's like it was 10 in my house, and I think it might be 8, assuming my son is not a complete clown show. Should we do some stories here?
Man, I'm looking forward to it. Let's send it.
So we're talking about grown-up 35-year-old toddlers who can finally get their own knife. We could also talk about people like that in Harvard University. There's a story about them. They're all over the news. People are quite upset. This was the lead story from CNN, and the story goes, the Trump administration's ending Harvard's ability to enroll, I think they missed an L there, you tell me, international students. Someone didn't go to Harvard. Maybe they did.
Or they did.
Maybe they did. Trump administration on yesterday revoked Harvard University's ability to enroll international students, which would mean that they would be able to get student visas, delivering a sharp punishment to the elite institution for refusing to bow to the administration's policy demands. Harvard can no longer enroll foreign students, and existing foreign students must transfer or lose their legal status, says the Department of Homeland Security. It's a bombshell that upsets students from around the world preparing to attend Harvard, the oldest university in the United States and one of the nation's most prestigious. At least formerly, it was the most prestigious. What do you think about all that? How do you feel about putting your retribution on Harvard?
I'm not going to cry about an ivory tower institution crumbling in on itself, particularly one that has an endowment that's over $50 billion, and still they continue to raise tuition prices. And the reason really, other than the ideological, for bringing in all these foreign students is that the fact that they pay the full freight on the tuition. So it's a scam.
Do you know who Jameel Hill is and why we're supposed to know who she is?
She allegedly was a sports commentator for ESPN who then felt quite a bit of umbrage with the orange man bad in the White House and called him a racist. So she just leaned fully into that, and she's still allegedly respected. She went to Michigan State, so definitely not a Harvard grad.
Yeah, that was the question. I was like, why is this lady so upset about Harvard? So I looked her up immediately, and it says under education, it says Samuel C. Mumford High School and Michigan State University. She's obviously done pretty well on a state school. I went to a state school, so whatever. Not everybody can go to fancy private schools like
Michigan State, though, is always in the running for one of the biggest party schools in the country.
It's like Arizona State University. There's a couple of them that and Florida probably has a couple out there that are known for it. You want to hear what she has to say about this? Because she's really upset on behalf of the elite Harvard people. Isn't she also the one who cries about racism and elitism all the time?
That's her shtick. That's very profitable.
Tracking. Okay, here we go. Here's a little take from CNN's roundtable where they immediately refocused, and she was slightly shamed, but not enough to change her mind.
And we didn't see this energy. And I'm not saying that this energy shouldn't be there, because absolutely Jewish students deserve to be safe. They deserve to be protected, for sure. But why are you picking this? Why now? And I have to question, especially given their overall
I think
agenda.
what happened last night is a pretty good reason.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it isn't.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think probably a lot of Jews watching this are feeling the way I'm feeling, which is that I can't believe we're talking about this rather than the fact that 2 people were murdered because the terrorist who killed them believed that they were Jews and was chanting the exact same thing that Jewish students have had to hear chanted at them for 2 years while he did that, who wrote a manifesto that reads exactly like the kinds of op-eds that are written routinely on these college campuses, that the comments on that manifesto are all completely in support of him. He is an outgrowth of the anti-Semitism on college campuses. And how are we not talking about that? That is the story.
What do you make of that, Steve, friend? What's up?
The Muppet face of shame is fantastic. But I love when you boil down to what Jamil Hill essentially said there was, look, all the Jewish students should be safe, but you shouldn't care if they get murdered.
I mean,
strong play. This is bold strategy, Cotton.
I mean, I think that's what she actually thinks.
Oh, without question. I mean,
yeah.
They're not intersectional enough, right? I mean, the woman there who's talking, who's saying appeal to authority. As a Jew, I'm really concerned about this. How about just as a person? Like, how about we just don't murder people?
You don't have to be a Jew, I don't think specifically. I feel like your audio's coming in hot. You don't have to be a Jew to think that it's pretty awful that 2 young people got gunned down. And that guy didn't know who the hell they were. There's no way that he did enough recon to know who it was. He just saw them coming out of a building that said Jewish on the outside of it, as far as we can tell.
And I was trying to. That was his conclusion. His conclusion was, I want to go to jail for the rest of my life, and I'll kill people to do that just so I can have a moment on national TV where I can chant "Free, Free Palestine."
He's going to have a rough go because he does not look like a real. He's a like a 30-something-year-old guy who is a professionally useless person from reading his LinkedIn resume. He has a bunch of like freelance jobs. He was a documenter of oral history or some nonsense like that. He was a credentialist or something. I read some of the stuff and I just immediately dismissed it. Did you read the manifesto that was put out by Ken Klippenstein yesterday?
No, I didn't. I'm more disturbed by his age, right? And all these protesters / rioters, violent street communists, like you could attribute a little bit of it to the youth and the feeling, the obligation. I have to go out in the streets because I'm 18. I have nothing else to do. But increasingly you're seeing like 30, 40, 50, 60-year-old people going out there. They are completely broken.
This is why we cannot give pocket knives to people until they're 35, I think, because that guy is just proven that you can't
run for president or have a Swiss Army knife.
Right. You can't run for president because you're dumb. So here's the deal. I did read the manifesto. It's not very long. The manifesto is some of the dumbest thinking that you could have. He basically talks about 3 murders. One of them was like a genocidal action that was happening somewhere. A doctor was working on saving somebody that had been, seriously injured in some sort of civil unrest or whatever it was. And then people who were part of the civil unrest / genocide came in and killed the guy on the operating table and then laughed. And the doctor was traumatized because he could not do anything about it. And then he saw those people in the street and they were being celebrated by whatever regime. Then there was another sort of like weird story mixed in about Robert McNamara, who was the former Secretary of Defense. And somebody attempted to throw him off a ferry at some point in time. And I don't really know the whole story, but he kind of detailed it. I skimmed it and went, I don't get it. And then that was somehow related to the atrocities that happened in Vietnam. And then one other non sequitur. And then the conclusion was, I love you, Mom. I love you, Dad. Free Palestine. That was it. I mean, that was really what this dude was. It's not it was the dumbest thing I've ever read, because it was like, it was kind of like the people that don't understand history that go like, well, did you know these 3 things that happened 500 years apart? And therefore, my conclusion, that was inevitable.
That's like the Gabby Giffords, the Arizona congresswoman, getting shot. And they tried to pin it on Sarah Palin because she wanted to target particularly vulnerable congressional districts. But ultimately, the guy who did it, he had problems with grammar. That was in his manifesto. They're just emotionally disturbed people all the time. And they just happen to like grasp on to whatever the next thing is. And in their heads, they're trying to draw lines and connect dots that just don't exist. But they're useful to the communist movement here, which is always progressing towards us, pushing us further and further along on this powder keg in the hopes that we're going to explode and they can rebuild from the ground up.
Well, they do want to outrage you because if you haven't thought about it, Republicans are very mean. And I don't know if you knew this already, Steve, but Republicans are mean, and they are mean to people who are in the most unfortunate situations. This is a CBS story. This was one of their lead stories today. Republicans are aiming to punish states that ensure unauthorized immigrants. I have yet to see the term unauthorized immigrants. Are we seeing a pivot in the language? What happened to the undocumented peoples?
It didn't poll test well enough, and Mike Johnson standing there with like the most punchable face of all time for those who are
that
watching.
Is not a good picture, but it is really funny that they used it. And I just put him behind you because I was like, well, we could put more. We could make him go away altogether and center on Trump, or I could just crop it with Mike Johnson kind of peeking in.
So elected representatives of the American people are looking to enforce immigration law against states that are breaking immigration law, but they're mean, horrible, and awful because the president has orange-ish hue in his skin, right?
Let me read you how it reads. President Trump's signature budget legislation would punish 14 states. Again, this is I decided they're fighting back with air quotes in the same way that they call us whistleblowers, in the same way they do everything else, right? Anything that you want to do that you want to discredit, you just put it in quotation marks, and therefore you know that they're obviously full of it. So they're going to punish 14 states that offer health coverage to people in the U.S. without authorization. You know, people who broke the law are not supposed to get American taxpayer-funded healthcare, whatever that. I mean, that seems perfectly logical. It seems like what people would normally do. Most of them are Democrat-led, Steve, which is why you know it's very mean, because Democrats are nice. They provide insurance to some low-income immigrants and often children, regardless of their legal status. You know, like good people would.
Can you believe that the mean orange man, literally Hitler, wants to stop us from taking American taxpayer dollars and spending them on illegal aliens' health care?
I can.
Can you believe it? They're just mean.
I'm appalled, but also I can. Does that work? Can I do that?
We are in an interesting timeline right now where the apprentice is the president, so I believe you can believe anything.
I'm going to believe that. All right. And also, since I want to get into something that I think we're going to have a lot of fun with, which is judges, and it's going to start off with nothing but snarkiness, and I don't want to interrupt our train of thought, I want to pivot over to one of our sponsors real quick. Folks over at Silent. I had to use their stuff the other day because I'm an unusual use case. I also have been going to the pool, but we were doing it outdoors. And because I live in Texas, it was sunny and it was 100 degrees. And then while I was in the pool, it started raining on me. And my Silent bag, which is what I was using to obscure my location, when I was out swimming, Steve, I did not want anyone to find me. So I put my phone in a Faraday case before I rolled out. Okay. And my Faraday case that I use, this one is actually waterproof. It's a waterproof dry bag in addition to being a Faraday. So that's the segue into this little piece here. We're going to read over from my friends, whether it's big tech or government or spies that are trying to track you when you're trying to swim at the pool, corporate America, criminals, anybody that tries to find you hanging out with your kids and just trying to do some basic drown proofing. Your privacy could be compromised 24/7. There is no other option than to protect yourself. And you can do so with Silent, which is slnt.com/Kyle. You see it here on the screen. You'll save 15%. They make a Faraday product, which means they make an interwoven mesh wire system that blocks all incoming and outgoing signals to your devices, making them invisible and safe from the outside world. If you want to disappear from the map when they're tracking you, this is the technology you use. And like I said, it also is waterproof if you buy the dry one, which is helpful. They make backpacks, phone sleeves, even pants, if you are so inclined, that have signal blocking technology, keeping wireless signals away from you, giving you peace of mind, keeping your body safe from RF bathing, which happens ubiquitously at this point. It also gives you just a break in the action where you can just say, my phone's not going to ring because my phone doesn't even get a signal because I've chosen not to. You place your phone inside, you close it up, and that's it. You're safeguarded from unauthorized access. Nobody can hack your phone while it's in there. Nobody can bother you while you're doing it. Go silent today at slnt.com/Kyle. Again, slnt.com/Kyle. You'll save 15%. You'll get free shipping on qualified orders. You see the E3. I keep saying I'm going to buy this bag, and I need to go buy this bag because I've been doing, there's a couple of things on my list. I get so scattered that I forget, but this is a good reminder today. That's the bag I want. I like it because it has two little sleeves. You can actually remove them or you can use them in the backpack. Again, slnt.com/Kyle. You'll see a list of stuff. I've got their dry bag. I've got their other sleeve. I've got some other stuff. We've got the big dry bag and the small dry bag. If you guys want to check them out, definitely do so at slnt.com/KYLE. Let's get Steve back here on the screen. Mr. Friend, are you ready for like a little bit of a lighthearted sort of take on this? Because there's about 8 articles I have about judges. You didn't know I was going to do this to you, but I'm going to.
And we're Send it, man. It's Friday. Let's laugh.
Let's start with Seamus and Freedom Tunes and this sort of comedy of errors of federal judges blocking or not blocking or approving or allowing the Trump administration to just be the executive in the United States. They all think they are. Seamus had a funny take, so we're going to start with that.
Hello, put it in order for my breakfast. I would like a waffle with bacon and egg.
No, I'm striking that order down.
Who are you?
I'm a municipal judge from Minnesota. I'm striking down your order.
What? Melania, the weirdest thing just happened. Could you make me some coffee?
Sure.
I'm sorry, but that is entirely unconstitutional.
Excuse me?
Again? Who are you?
Don't act like you don't know who I am. Bill Rover, Chatham County Magistrate Judge. You have no constitutional authority to do that.
And who are you?
Judge of the 2003 Loudoun County Dog Show. Sir, step away from the toilet.
That's it. Secret Service! Get these guys out of here!
Dun, dun, dun. And it says Trump arrests judges, right? Like, that's the headline. So how true does that ring for you?
We're going to get to that point. It's at a certain point, they're just going to have to say, like, you and what army are going to stop me?
This is true. All right. I have 4 headlines on here from 4 different news organizations. I'll loosely call them that. The Trump administration, what does it say? The Supreme Court grants Trump the ability to fire independent agencies, but the Federal Reserve is different. So you can do some things, but not other things because of some things. The executive gets to be the executive except with the Federal Reserve, apparently. That's the Supreme Court's decision on that. Got another one from NPR. It says the federal judge further halts Trump's radical government transformation. We'll read some of that.
Did it say that in the text of the legal documents?
Yes, they said it was a radical government transformation. Another judge has halted the dismantling of the Department of Education, orders fired workers to be reinstated. Under what authority? Nobody knows. Why not? Just because what the hell? And then lastly, Democrats strip, this is my favorite one, strip Trump of the authority over police agency that protects judges as threats against judges surge. They want to take the United States Marshal Service from the DOJ and make it do, I don't know, executive authority stuff under the judiciary. You talk about people that have a constitutional crisis. Let's start from the beginning. Let's start with let's go to what they can and can't do. So we covered it earlier this week, I believe. They wanted to get rid of these 2 ladies, one who was in charge of the Merit Service Protection Board, a woman named Kathy Harris, and the other one was the National Labor Relations Board, Gwen Wilcox. They both were removed, and then they both sued. And I'm sure they didn't have to foot the bill for this because as long as you're going against the Trump administration, people are willing to take your lawsuit for free. The Supreme Court said, yeah, they can be fired, but not Jerome Powell for some reason.
Maybe they're concerned about their own retirement accounts or something and how the interest rates will impact that. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Either the President of the United States is the chief executive and has plenary authority over who is allowed into the executive branch to work there, or he doesn't. There's no like picking winners and losers within the bureaucracy.
But what if he orders waffles and bacon? Can they stop that? Because bacon is bad for the environment.
But look, that guy's from Chatham County and he says, no, you can't do it.
I love that they chose like completely random and arbitrary people like that.
I'm from Chatham County, Georgia.
Are you really?
Yes.
That's outstanding. That's so good. Okay. The government, it added, faces greater risk of harm from orders allowing removed officers to continue exercising executive authority than a wrongfully removed officer from being able to perform her statutory duty, and therefore that's why they sided with it. There was actually a balancing act where they didn't just say the president is the chief executive, Article 2 powers are for Article 2 authorities.
The Supreme Court has this knack for always opting to do the exact thing that King Solomon offered the 2 mothers. They could split the baby in half, and that's what they try to do all the time, as opposed to just saying like that's right and that's wrong. And they're always interested in compromise, right? Because of the institution. Like some people on both sides have to be kind of happy and kind of sad. We can't just have one side get total victory. And because of that, we're in this grinding of gears as a country that is pushing us further and further onto this powder keg. And eventually it's going to explode.
Isn't that the reason why we had, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that the reason why we have lifetime terms for the judges? They're supposed to be able to act with impunity and not lose their damn jobs.
No, we give them that because that way they can be living in Washington, D.C. forever and having U.S. Marshal Service protection. And then if they're further enough to the left, like Ketanji Jackson, then you can say things that are on their face illegal and unconstitutional, but you don't have to suffer any consequences because your position is there. Whereas the alleged Republican Federalist Society approved judges, they endeavor to do whatever they can to not actually come out with a definitive answer to any of the questions put before them because they just want to have, I don't know, job security or continue to have a place in society where they can say, well, look, we're just trying to appease and make everybody a little bit happy.
That's why we can't have the radical transformation of government, even though we've already had that happen. We've seen weaponization. We've seen all kinds of wild things that happen under Biden. God forbid. But no, if you are on the left, then you can get a federal judge in San Francisco at the district level to indefinitely pause Donald Trump's sweeping overhaul of the federal government, of which a small fraction lives in San Francisco. It's going to be shocking to you that it's a female judge, a woman named Susan Ilston, I'm assuming her gender based on name, issued a preliminary injunction late Thursday, 2 weeks after temporarily halting Donald Trump's February 11th executive order directing agencies to shut down offices and lay off thousands. In a coalition of labor unions, nonprofits, and local governments have sued to block the executive order. I don't even know how they have standing with the subsequent memo.
Universal injunctions are not a thing. But the communist left just says, you and what army? And too many people on the Republican conservative right say, well, the judges have spoken, so we just have to go along with things that don't exist.
A couple other little stories here we'll keep touching on here because they're fun. The same story over at the dismantling of the Department of Education. That's actually the underlying picture that is sitting underneath you, Steve, is heavy set, I guess, government supporters, maybe or maybe not, workers at the Department of Education, which educates how many schools does the DOE run? Do you know?
The lowest number, 0.
None. No schools are being run, so no children are actually being affected. That money still exists. The judge's name is Myung Jung.
I know that 0 is the lowest number because I wasn't educated by the Department of Education.
Well, that sounds racist to me. The district judge said that the cuts to the agency, the Department of Education, would likely cripple the agency. Something was also given away in the executive order saying begin steps to dismantle it. And so the judge has just reported what was in the EO as though it was a finding.
Breaking news. Shutting down an agency is
likely to cripple the
agency.
It's fantastic. The federal judge in this case is from Massachusetts, so that's really good to know too. Again, it's almost unilateral. It's not Chatham County, Georgia, actually, that's doing these rulings, even though that is a pretty fun little tiny place. All right, so noting that the department cannot be shut down without Congress's approval. Defending the legislature, it sounds like, again, they should just move on. And then I'm going to give you this J.D. Vance story after this. They have no interest in actually following through on what the actual are. Does anyone ever cite the Constitution in these findings? Did you ever see that? They do case law. I never see constitutional, citation. It's like, oh, because of this article and this clause, we base our findings on. It's like because of these court cases and our feelings. It's the same way we got Roe v. Wade, I feel like.
I mean, as a callback to Harvard, Harvard Law School, I don't believe actually does any instruction on constitutional law at this point. It's all precedent. So these judges establish precedents that are out of bounds with the Constitution and with the law that has been passed by Congress and signed by presidents, and they just go off of what their feelings are, and then they have a precedent so that future judges, even those who are quote-unquote approved by the right because the Federalist Society said so, have to go off of those precedents. It's a complete construct that they've created for themselves.
Can we agree, though, that some of these laws are really old, Steve? And so old laws, especially ones that don't favor our position, are not as important as new feelings.
I would agree that freedom of speech is an old law, yes.
I hate it. It's the Constitution. They hate that too. Okay, Democrats are looking to strip Donald Trump of authority over police agency. I don't think the U.S. Marshal Service are really a police agency as I see it.
I'm just saying. Jailing agency, but yes.
Senate Democrats will formally introduce legislation Thursday to transfer control of the United States Marshal Service to the court system itself. Do you want to tell people what the marshals are and what they do, lest people think this makes any sense whatsoever? And also, they don't have the numbers, so who cares? But
it'll be interesting because we have the U.S. Capitol Police, which are doing an executive function within the legislative branch. So now we'll have the U.S. Marshals, which will be part of the judicial branch. But the U.S. Marshals, for who they are, effectively, they run the courts, security. Mm-hmm. They do prisoner movement to make sure that they are housing them and then moving them back and forth to their court dates. They handle fugitives because somebody might actually break out of custody, or they might be like an unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. They do protection for the Supreme Court justices. And then also, I think probably their most important function is that they deputize task force officers for the other law enforcement agencies. That's how they get the real cops into the FBI and the DEA and the ATF.
Cory Booker said, since 1789, the United States Marshals have valiantly protected our nation's judges and enforced court orders. But their dual accountability to the executive branch and judicial branch paves the way towards a constitutional crisis. Apparently, this constitutional crisis has been brewing for almost 250 years.
So carrying out a court-authorized warrant is a dual duty to the executive branch and the judicial branch.
Yeah, can you make any sense of that?
That's basically the job of law enforcement.
Which is a what kind of function?
Executive.
How do you know, though? I mean, how do you know?
Because I can read an org chart, unlike James O'Keefe, and I know that the U.S. Marshal Service and the FBI and the DEA and the ATF, they all fall underneath the Department of Justice, which is a department within the executive branch.
Okay, before we go any deeper into this, which we are going to do, there's some weird stuff that's brewing down in Florida and your neck of the woods, and it may have something to do with people being in the executive, but also being secret agents of themselves. Can we do the story of, what is her name, Shay Talley Bradley real quick with Steve Baker?
Let's send it. And she's Bradley because the patriarchy always wins. Don't say the dad's name.
I don't know which name is which, so just to be fair. Okay, so we're folks, if you're just listening to this, you're about to see our friend Steve Baker of Blaze Media doing a ambush interview of an FBI agent who was giving a speech on behalf of allegedly, sorry. Confirmed. Sorry, I confirmed. I actually talked to somebody who was like, "Oh yeah, I worked with her on some stuff."
You didn't just Don Jr. look off screen and say it's confirmed? Okay.
No, I actually confirmed it with actual people who actually worked with this lady. She was apparently at headquarters for a long time in the inspection division, so she's a known quantity. But she was giving a speech for Memorial Day because she's a retired colonel, as it was explained to me, a full bird colonel. She retired from like either the National Guard or whatever. And then she was giving this speech about Memorial Day. And in her bio and in her intro, they didn't mention that she's currently an FBI agent. Can you break down how weird that is just for people that don't understand how strange that would be?
It makes zero sense. I mean, I've done enough speeches where they kind of like read off your CV, your resume, and there is an appeal to authority there because the people you're speaking to want to know the authority that's sitting in front of them, what sort of subject matter expertise and experience you have. Are you just like some crazy person, like there's a guy who's chanting free Palestine? Or are you somebody who's actually had experiences that are worth hearing about that you could educate me on this? So this is an individual who, from my understanding, was in the military, was this colonel, suffers from PTSD, and spoke at length about that apparently during her speech, which makes her, I don't know, the ideal candidate to have a security clearance within the U.S. government, but then also leans on what the FBI loves to lean on, and that is that they're secret agents because they're not paid by the DOJ, they're paid by the Department of Agriculture.
Right. Yes. I actually have a collection debt from the Department of Agriculture, and when I called to talk to somebody at the National Finance Center, they were like, "You're going to have to bring it up with Ag," and I was like, "I never worked with Ag. I used to work for FBI," and they're like, "Oh, well, why does it say Ag?" And I'm like, "You're the finance people. I don't know why they pay us through that thing." I think that's because
I committed mortgage fraud.
Right. Yeah, it's really, actually, that's all that. That's another show, another day. We'll have to just laugh about that. Did you ever have anybody approach you and ask you if you were an FBI agent in public?
Yes, all the time.
What's the answer to that?
Yes, here's my credentials, which I'm required to furnish.
But weren't you a secret agent too?
No, I think there was a Facebook account that had my vehicle and identity on it on the Indian reservation.
Because they tracked your movement?
Yes, they did.
It'd be really hard then for them tracking your movement as the guy that looks like the guy sitting across the screen from me on an Indian reservation. It'd be difficult for you to say, "I don't know, sir," if they asked you if you were an FBI agent. But that's exactly what we're going to see here. Contain your laughter. Your audio will bleed over Steve, so we're just going to sit here. We're not going to watch the whole video, but here's a short little clip. Did our friend Sonia Labasco shoot this video?
She might have. I know she went. Steve asked me. I guess I was a little too far away. I was like an hour and a half.
Yeah, I think Sonia actually may have filmed this, which is funny. So anyway, this is a suspendable collaboration. Outing a secret FBI agent.
Hey, sir.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing very well.
Very, very well. So, you're also an FBI agent, aren't you?
I don't know, sir.
Well, I would be curious as to what your thoughts are on the current Bongino Patel administration.
I don't have any, sir. I appreciate it.
You don't have any comments on that whatsoever?
No, sir.
Are you aware that Blaze Media just came out with a story about you today and your relationship to Congressman Cory Mills.
I still have no idea what you're talking about.
You have no idea what I'm talking about.
Freaking mystery.
Is it true that you tried to recruit a source as an undercover operative to investigate a Blaze Media journalist?
Sir, I still have no idea what you're talking about.
All right, Steve, you've been a discreet observer and a astute observer of the human condition. Give me a lying, not lying take on this walking sort of impromptu interview.
Very uncomfortable, and she's lying, and she's probably very fearful because she's not carrying a firearm, even though she's an FBI agent in Florida, where even as an independent citizen, concealed carry is allowed. And later on in the video, I did notice that she touched Steve Baker's arm, and I think that was probably an unwanted contact. I hope he files a complaint against her.
Why did she touch him, you think?
She's trying to develop that connection, that rapport maybe, as she'd been called out. And it's probably been a minute or three since she's done an effective investigation. I mean, from what I understand in the reporting from the Blaze, she was doing interviews via text message on a sensitive investigative matter, which may or may not have been off the books. So good luck with the Inspector General's office, and hopefully Harmeet Dillon or maybe an Ed Martin could take this up as an 18 U.S.C. 242, because that's a color of law violation.
I had a female FBI supervisor touch my arm inappropriately. I didn't like it. And
Did she
I told her
your clothing?
She complimented my clothing. Yeah, she did. And I just was imagining, like, if I was a dude and I walked up to some lady in the office and I touched, and it was like, Susan, this is a lovely blouse. You should wear it more frequently.
George Costanza style, and just find out what material it's made of.
What happens to a normal grown man in corporate America or government job that touches a lady gingerly and says, this is a lovely article of clothing, you should wear it more frequently? How does that work out for them, you think?
You get sent to HR and then terminated, and there's a permanent black mark, and you wind up, I don't know, picking trash.
Yeah. I told my boss that I was going to have to burn the shirt now so that my wife didn't stab her, which was my response. And my wife is not going to stab anybody. Probably.
Did you really want to find out, though?
I mean, she is from Brooklyn, so like, are you really who wants to find that out the wrong way?
She's got that.
And I know my boss didn't carry a
spunk.
gun either. My boss didn't carry a gun either, like a classic FBI lady. It's not good.
Great expose by the Blaze by Steve Baker, because she was recruiting people to go inform on other Blaze Media personnel, I don't know, on behalf of Cory Mills, on her own initiative. I think it's has not been fully fleshed out at this point. But what we know is an FBI agent working in the Orlando resident agency, which is a satellite office for the Tampa division, conducted an investigation into people who were exposing stolen valor matters about a sitting congressman, which is not a federal investigation.
I think it could be, but it's not generally.
I don't know what the criminality is. I don't know what the underlying accusation is here. I mean, maybe DOD could be doing it. Maybe the FBI is partnering with it. But she, from what I understand, was approaching these people and represented herself to be investigating the congressman, which is a sensitive investigative matter.
100%.
But then later came out that she was actually investigating the investigators who were digging into that information, which is First Amendment protected activity, because you have freedom of the press. And for you to make those people the subject of an FBI investigation is a color of law violation. It's a misdemeanor crime. And if there's multiple people involved, we could call that a conspiracy against rights.
Dang. It's almost like the FBI is not fixed.
It hasn't been 6 to 8 months yet.
Oh, got it. Okay, fair enough. All right, let's do Blackout Coffee. We're going to do an ad read for them. And then I'm going to go into something I've been holding on to that I'm super excited about. It's a video I've never seen before. It has to do with judges. Someone accused me they said, we get it, you hate women. That was a claim that was made against me on social media the other day. So I'm going to show that is true by showing
your
you.
wife or your daughters?
Yeah, I'm outnumbered. I'm outnumbered by a lot. I used to have a female dog too. So it was like female dog, wife, and 3 daughters, and then like a little guy. We're going to prove that that person is correct by showing a horrible, disgusting, fat female judge doing something that I had not seen the evidence before. But this is the evidence about Hannah Dugan, the what is it, Wisconsin judge that was picked up by ICE as a obstruction. I didn't realize how interesting that case actually looked. You just heard like she told some guy something or whatever. I didn't know that she actively did the thing that she did. And the video is very, very compelling. So if you're just tuning in on the audio part and you want to check us out on Spotify, it's KyleSeraphinShow.com. You can actually flip over and go between the two. 40 minutes or so into the show. This is a video worth watching if you haven't seen it somewhere else. All right. So before we go do that, let's go ahead and say thanks to the folks over at Blackout Coffee. Kaboom. There they are. If you haven't tried it yet, you should try it. Blackout Coffee. We do it every single morning here in the Seraphin household. It's coffee that's not just like every other one. They're built on hard work and American values and grit. And they built up their company the way that we built up this show. Started off in some place that wasn't where you wanted to be, ended up in a place that was significantly better. They started in a home garage. Now they have a 64,000 square foot warehouse, roasting all their beans in-house, packing all the order themselves, employing hardworking Americans, not unauthorized immigrants. That's my new term of the day, I guess. No corporate nonsense, just damn good coffee made by people who actually give a damn. You guys can see I've been sipping it throughout the show. It's getting me going, especially because I didn't sleep last night due to the freaking thunderstorms. If you guys want to check them out, go to blackoutcoffee.com/KYLE. Again, it's blackoutcoffee.com/KYLE. Save yourself 20% on your first order. Check out the stuff. Don't do the flavored things unless you're a flavored person. I actually recently took delivery of their individual freeze-dried, pre-made. Sometimes you just need one cup because you've been, I don't know, doing interviews all day, and then you're like, I got to do something else. I'm going to need 1 cup of coffee. I don't need 2 liters like I normally do, as you saw on the screen there, that big pot. You can check them out in their individual single serves, or you can buy the whole beans the way we do, grind them up, roast them up, and brew them up and make yourself a little bit more awake than you would otherwise been because you didn't get any sleep due to the thunderstorms. Blackoutcoffee.com/KYLE. Don't drink weak coffee. Start your day off the right way. Keep the American dream alive with some real coffee and a real coffee company. Again, it's blackoutcoffee.com/KYLE. Link in the show description. Are you prepared, my friend, Steve Friend, for Hannah Dugan? Currently dealing with the results of this interesting little interaction. I'm just going to let the video speak for itself. Ready?
Send it.
Sending it.
He meets his attorney in the hallway and walks towards Circuit Court Judge Hannah Dugan's courtroom. Along the way, he passes plainclothes federal agents who are sitting on a bench. They are there to detain him. After Flores Ruiz walks by, the agents turn to each other and appear to confirm his identity amongst themselves. But a few moments later, Judge Dugan and another judge approach the agents sitting on the bench. A criminal complaint against Dugan later said she was alerted to their presence by a court official. That complaint says during this interaction, Dugan and the agents disagreed over the type of warrant they had to arrest Flores Ruiz. According to the complaint, Dugan ordered the agents to go to the chief judge's office. Video shows her pointing them through a double door. She then turns back to speak with other agents further down the hall and orders them through the doors as well. Shortly after that, with the agents gone from the hallway, Eduardo Flores Ruiz and his attorney exit into the hallway through a different door. As they walk down the hall toward the elevators, they pass another plainclothes federal agent. Neither they nor Judge Dugan seem to have noticed at the time. That agent motions to another to follow Flores Ruiz. Security video shows Flores Ruiz exiting through a basement exit. Upstairs on the 6th floor, the other agents have left the chief judge's office and worked their way downstairs. Flores Ruiz left the building onto 9th Street. Videos of the street shows the agents catching up to him. Flores Ruiz runs across 10th Street while trying to get away, but the agents catch him and arrest him.
What do you think about that? Have you seen that before?
I have not seen that footage. A couple thoughts, though. First of all, ICE rolls like dude heavy, man. They have a lot of people there, but they're kind of obviously feds.
That is a full operation. Like you had like primary contact and secondary contact and then decoy contact that was hanging out there.
It was impressive, and they're obviously proficient at what they're doing.
Right.
I'm curious about the second judge who was aiding the one who's been charged, because it seems like maybe there's a partner in crime there, as well as the defense attorney for supporting his flight from federal authorities who had a rightful deportation order in hand. So I think that she's probably going to go to prison now if we in fact have a justified,
that looks really clean as far as like, I mean,
and prosecution.
You've seen surveillance footage before. Have you ever been able to lay out a case like this is exactly what I said happened, and here she is physically proving it out over a period on a couple of cameras?
I'm actually more encouraged by the local news story that did the investigation there. Like, that guy probably needs to be hired by a federal law enforcement agency.
That'd be good. Yeah, I've seen feds do a terrible job of going through footage, myself included, because usually we didn't have the technology, probably because it was federal systems. They were like, we can't download the app to watch this video, so try to figure it out.
Did you try to turn it off and back on again? I'll put in a ticket.
Here's a VTC file. We don't have any VTC viewers. Good luck. Unknown. What happens next? Chain of custody be damned.
Yeah. What about your VCR that you should have there?
All right. So you brought up media, you brought up news, people that are actually doing it. There's a contrast. Local news sometimes actually gets the story right. That was pretty cool. By the way, the most troubling thing about that entire video footage was that at one point in time, they had an arrow pointed to the judge and it said Big Dugan. Did you see that? It snuck in there. It was like with someone just being an a-hole, they're like Big Dugan. I don't know if that was added after the fact by like a YouTuber or something, but God bless the person that did that because that made me happy.
It's like the Biden falls when they put on the Google Maps after he fell off the mic.
So there's a lady whose name is something, dude, her name is like Yakarinda Akatakataria or something. And I've seen her name. What's her name?
Durga.
No, you know who she is. She's this real heavy set black lady. She's on either NBC or MSNBC, something like that. So she goes out and does a question and she wants to discredit, speaking of being honest and being a reporter, she wants to discredit the video that Donald Trump showed in the White House the other day to the president of South Africa, showing a bunch of crosses that represent murdered people. And so this is that interaction. And luckily, I guess the White House press secretary decided to just not roll over on this, which would have been what we've expected for the last couple of years. This is a pretty amusing exchange. When you get to cite the AP as your source to a leftist, I think you're winning. This is what this is one of the better moves that has happened in the last week or so from the Trump administration.
Crosses are representing their lives. Those crosses are representing their lives in the fact that they are now dead and their government did nothing about it. Are you disputing that there's no...
The fact that the video showed what the president claimed it showed, because it did not show that. But even more, what I'm asking you is who at the White House...
No, it did show that. It showed white crosses representing people who have perished because of racial persecution.
Verifies the videos that the president shows, and what protocols are in place when there's unsubstantiated information being put out for the world and world leaders to show.
What's unsubstantiated about the video? The video shows crosses that represent the dead bodies of people who were racially persecuted by their government. In fact, the Associated Press, of all places, has a picture of that very monument, and the caption from the Associated Press is, "Each cross marks a white farmer who has been killed in a farm murder." So it is substantiated, not just by that video and the physical evidence that everybody saw on display in the Oval Office, but also by another outlet in this room, the Associated Press. So you should take it up with them if you believe the claim is unsubstantiated. And that's a ridiculous line of questioning.
We're going to move on to the next thing here. Her name is Yakmi Alasindor. You can guess why I don't remember what it is. I feel like she's irrelevant, but she has a major national news post, like so many of these people do. I'm sure she makes good money.
Oh, I'm sure she's raking it in there and asking a ridiculous question. What are the protocols? And again, the unsubstantiated, it's perfect.
How do you vet the videos that the president is going to show? Have you run this by a federal judge to see if it's legit?
Well, it's unsubstantiated, which is in scare quotes, right? That's what they always lean back on.
It's always that, yes. And there are, in fact, there were other articles. This was yesterday's piece, but there was a significant number of coverages of pushing false claims or unsubstantiated claims or potentially false claims. Any kind of discrediting language they can put out there, they do.
Malinformation.
That sounds right. Yeah, like true but inconvenient. So another guy who's been doing that is Jake Tapper. He's on a book tour trying to sell a book. I think he's trying to sell it to conservatives. Is that the move?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, he's trying to buy back a little bit of his credibility when he went on national television and said that it was a stutter, which I have an interesting question for Jake Tapper. Okay. Why are you writing an entire book making fun of Joe Biden's stutter?
Shame on him. Now he's doing that. So we got some video of this. This is from Mediaite. And, I think he's at $7 million a year. He could afford to buy some back. He would just have to do it financially. He would have to actually go out and pay people to watch and listen to him from all the credibility he's lost.
It's going to be transparency by leaders when it comes to their health. And I would argue that some of the skepticism we've heard from Democrats, Republicans, and doctors, I have no idea what's true, what's not true. All I can say is like that lack of confidence in the transparency that's being offered didn't come out of nowhere. And three, like this, or C, I'm really bad at that. And C, this applies to Donald Trump too, and every future president. Donald Trump.
Biden was lying about his health and his age and or his medical conditions and so on. And so like that applies to Donald Trump.
Sure.
If we can turn it back to Donald Trump, we're winning, and we've done it.
Always. Look, like the guy was demented old fool, human Roomba with cancer, likely the entire time he was president, being run by the Marxists like a marionette puppet. So we should apply that standard to the guy who we don't like, even though the last 4 years we completely ignored the other one.
Even though he wakes up every day and he's tweeting at midnight and he's tweeting at 4, like the guy doesn't sleep and he seems fine. And he, honestly, You've done some of these turn and burn where you go and do a speaking event and turn around the next day. Donald Trump does them like every day of the week. And like for all the things that like, and there's plenty of things about Trump that are not my favorite thing in the world. I think he over exaggerates. I think this big, beautiful bill thing is horrendous because it's going to put us into debt. And I don't think he's conservative, not even a little bit, but I don't dislike the guy from listening to him. I am in awe of the amount of energy because I don't have that energy. I don't want to do it. And that's not like Joe Biden used to do backflips and dunks. You can literally like, you don't have to like cite hidden evidence about Donald Trump being a walking human Energizer bunny.
If he was more interested in like physical fitness and shooting guns, he has the ability through sleep deprivation that a lot of people don't have, that he could have been a special forces guy if that had been his actual interest. Basically, that's what selections test for, is your ability to deal with sleep deprivation. And I don't think that guy is asleep more than a couple hours a day.
I'm really funny after about 24 hours of no sleep. I've written entire like humorous skits roasting all the people that were torturing me for the 24 hours prior. That was one of the things we had to do through what's called the extended training day in PJ and Doc. They put you through this like thing, and then about 24 hours into it, and it's dark outside, and it's like 4 a.m. after you've been going since 3 or 2 a.m. the day before, and then they're like, make a skit, make fun of everybody that's messing with you, get together and like organize it. You have freaking 20 minutes or something. So that's one of those things. It's like a human interaction game. And I wrote what went down as one of the funniest things that we did a complete reenactment of. What was that movie called? The Hangover, and the wolf pack thing, like a wolf pack of one routine. We did that making fun of one of our instructors who was like a goofball and like no one liked him, and it was really obvious that no one liked him. So we made him the shark pack because they were doing it in the water. They were checking with us, and this guy had no business being there. And the cadre that were abusing us like literally fell over laughing in tears. I was really proud of that. I was like, I'm winning. I can't think straight, but I was able to put together like a humorous, 3 minutes, pretty tight.
It's a special breed of people, right? You guys love to send racist messages to each other over Signal. And,
gosh darn it. You heard me yesterday.
Skits.
I know it. He heard me yesterday. We do like to write skits. Like we're all creative. You know who also is really funny and creative and does funny things is my buddy, Mike Howell. I'll call him my buddy. We've never met, but I really like Mike Howell. I think I would hang out with Mike Howell. We've talked on the phone quite a bit. We text all the time about this stuff. He went out there and said, remember, the whole story about Joe Biden having cancer was a debunking, discrediting, and sort of like look over here to the dropping the tape proving that Joe Biden is completely out of it. These were the Robert Hur investigation tapes. And Mike Howell would rather not give it to Axios. He'd rather give it to people like, because they sued for this, by the way. Mike Howell and the Oversight Project wanted those tapes. So instead, of course, they gave it to Axios so they could run cover. Listen to his take on where he thinks it should have gone instead.
I would have rather had the White House give the tapes to the North Koreans or Al Jazeera than to Jake Tapper's business partner. The White House rewarded those who are profiting off of, monetizing their own cover-up by virtue of this book sale that they're rolling out this week. I think it was a terrible mistake. And not only was it rewarding the bad guys who should be held accountable for this, but Axios basically engaged in a controlled demolition. They released the tape late on a Friday, the worst time you can release anything, particularly something of this magnitude, and then they screwed it up too.
So he's not wrong. That is when you kill a story. Friday afternoon, news drop.
Friday news dump, and they synced it up, and I'm sure they arranged it with the cancer diagnosis announcement.
Right. Let me ask you this, though. Somebody had to leak that was inside, I guess now Trump's White House. Does that sound right?
Well, yes, if they got it from last week, last Friday, then allegedly the Trump administration is in control.
Isn't that more proof that the DOJ and the FBI are not recaptured and are not even close if they're out there killing stories about Joe Biden being a human Roomba that also has cancer?
Counterpoint, it hasn't been 6 to 8 months yet.
Stop. Your buddy Jesse, who, what did I call him? I think I called him Jelly. I think I called him Jelly one time, twice,
Sounds
actually.
like he's probably is like a really cool hybrid signature that he can sign.
You know what's funny is that there was like a deadly FBI agent whose name was Jelly Bean. I can't remember his last name, but Jelly Bean was like, he killed like 8 men before he joined the bureau. He was like a known gunfighter in a town. That's what they used to hire into the FBI. Anyway, so Jesse Jelly Kelly was going on a rant about this, and I think he's right. And he's asking a question at the end. I want you to answer the question for me. You've been seeing some of the stuff that's gone out. We've been listening to Ed Martin talk about that they're going to do some accountability. I want your most non-cynical take that you can muster on a Friendly Friday. Here's Jesse.
So for 4 years, the president not only had dementia, he had prostate cancer, advanced prostate cancer. He was either A, treating it, or B, chose to forego treatment and die, and people all around him knew it and pretended as if he was functional for 4 years as he ran the United States of America into the side of a mountain. So again, I want to ask, who's going to go to prison? Because it's not a small thing. It's not a made-up political scandal. It's not time to move on. It's not time to focus on something else. I want to know who's going to prison for covering up the mental and physical condition of the man pretending to be president for 4 years.
No one's going to prison for this. I mean, no one will go. It's more likely that the Orlando FBI agent would face some sort of a misdemeanor charge for what she did to either aid or Corey Mills, or maybe just on her own initiative, go after a media organization at the Blaze under 18 U.S.C. 242. Then we will get the doctors who lied or the staffers who managed the auto pen and managed Joe Biden like a marionette puppet, or the Jill Biden who saw that every single day and lied to her faces about it, because it's one big party, we ain't in it, and there will be a push very much like the coronavirus. We just need to move on.
Oh, weird. We didn't set this up, but there you go. There's a new coronavirus report coming out of China. There's a surge of coronavirus variant, the NB181. So all of you that were tariff experts not so long ago, and then became, what was the thing after the tariffs that people became? They were like federal court listeners officially.
Yes, we're really worried about like habeas corpus and due process.
The habeas corpus experts, and I think it was actually the gang tattoo experts are now going to have to go back to being virologists again. We're going to step back into 2020, 2021.
Have you gotten your 9th booster yet?
I have no boosters. No boosters whatsoever. Interestingly enough, that's been a topic that's been brought up over at the MAHA report, which is what we actually led with. That was the picture. You and I are going to talk about the MAHA report right now and some interesting little information. It's almost like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has really been interested in vaccines and things like this and healthcare for years. He went from being an environmental warrior where he was on the side of the left to being like a quote unquote anti-vaxxer, which actually used to be a left-wing position.
The granola eating hippie mom, yes.
Right? The only people that were not getting their kids vaccinated when I was growing up were like granola, Berkeley, hippie moms. Here is Donald Trump talking about the MAHA report, first installation. It was discredited immediately. I think I actually have, let me see if I have the discrediting piece here from something. I may not have saved it. It was such a good little, yeah, of course I deleted it. It was another little thing. It was put in scare quotes. They were like, unsubstantiated. It's damaging to the healthcare system or some garbage. Anyway, here's Trump talking about it.
4 months ago, I created the Presidential Commission to Make America Healthy Again. And today, the commission officially delivers its first report on childhood health. Here are just some of the alarming findings, and they really are alarming. It's unbelievable, terrible. More than 40% of American children now have at least one chronic health condition. Since the 1970s, rates of childhood cancer have soared in many cases by nearly 50%, 50%. Well, in the 1960s, less than 5% of the children were obese. Now over 20% are obese. A few decades ago, 1 in 1, think of this one. This is, to me, the one that gets me every time, and it seems to be getting worse. Just a few decades ago, 1 in 10,000 children had autism. Today, it's 1 in 31. Last time I heard the number is 1 in 34, right? Now it's 1 in 31. There's something wrong, and we will not stop until we defeat the chronic disease epidemic in America. We're going to get it done. For the first time ever, this report examines some of the root causes that many believe are making our children sicker. And our population sicker, I guess. It just doesn't stop with the children.
So you'll love this. This is something from NBC News. This is just a headline that I had. It was one of the headlines. One of them was much nastier than this. But it says, RFK Jr. report on child's health takes issue with food additives, medications, and chemicals. It's heavy on outlining problems, but it's light on concrete solutions.
So we should just continue with the problems. Like that's That's what the conclusion that they want to have there?
There's no solution. It turns out some of the solutions might be like, just don't get some of these things, don't eat some of these foods, don't engage in these practices. It turns out, and I've got a good clip of him talking about the Gardasil vaccine, which he's been talking about this stuff for a long time. This is a much younger RFK Jr.
Before we get that, just a note on Donald Trump. He's reading that. I don't think he pre-read it, or maybe if he did, he just glanced at it. But you can tell by the way he's kind of off the cuff that he is reading that information, he's comprehending it, and he's reacting to it. And
that's a cognitive
compare
test.
that to what we saw with the Axios audio with the Bob Hur special counsel investigation.
No, you're exactly right. And anybody who's done this before, where you're reading something, but you want to add your own 2 cents in the middle of a paragraph and then go back to it, like there's a certain amount of cognition that is required to do that we know Joe Biden had the ability to, because he couldn't figure out how to walk off a stage. We saw him freeze and just like the Roomba reboot was happening, or he ran out of batteries. Anyway, RFK Jr. talking about Gardasil. So he's been on this topic for quite a long time. And there's, it's just one of many. Of course, these are just heavy on the problems, I guess.
Gardasil is probably the single worst mass vaccine that we've ever seen. This vaccine targets millions of preteens and teens for whom the risk of dying from cervical cancer is 0. The death rates in the Gardasil trials were 37 times the death rates for cervical cancer. Children who take that vaccine, the Gardasil vaccine, are 37 times more likely to die from the vaccine than they are to die from cervical cancer.
You should just drop it right there. That's such a simple thing. It's like, well, if you have rates that are, it's the same thing with remdesivir, which I saw another study that they were talking about it, where they said it wasn't approved for treating Ebola because it had a higher death rate than the actual virus does. But it was cool.
Is near, yes. The juice has to be worth the squeeze. The treatment cannot be worse than the disease. That's a pretty basic principle when it comes to medical care.
You'd think. Here's Drew Pinsky. I actually always like Drew. He says things that are softer and probably like center left, but he's always seemed like a reasonable voice. Maybe it's just because I've been listening to him since I was a teenager and off and on, and he always comes across as being relatively sensible. He's on Fox with Laura Ingraham talking about like what this report is and what it isn't. And for a guy that's kind of, like I said, center left, I think this is actually the way that normal people interpret data. Like, there could be some real problems. We should be able to talk about them and not be canceled, which is what RFK Jr. had happen to him.
Nothing like this has been attempted. And in fact, what we see in the previous 4 years was attempt at squashing and covering up anyone who dared to come up against the narratives that they were pushing. Senator Ron Johnson just had a hearing where he revealed the extraordinary evidence of myocarditis in young males, and that the administration and the FDA and the NIH knew about it and suppressed this information, leading God knows how many kids to serious illness and potentially death. Now we're talking about doing something. There were several interesting things in this report. One was, you mentioned the obesity and the chronic illness, 1,400% increase in medicine prescribing to young people, and yet they are sicker than ever. 1,400%. We expect solutions in a pill. They're not there. Solutions are in a spiritual growth, in our families, in attending to the mental health of these kids, giving them proper nutrition, limiting exposures of all types. Listen, we live in a time when everyone expects life to be made better by medical interventions, pills, vaccines, you name it. I was raised by a family practitioner, and he hammered into me that any medicine, any time you interact with the medical system, it is dangerous. And
holy moly. How are you going to make money if you're just going to do spiritual health and let kids be healthy and play outdoors and things like that? Steve, where's the money in that?
Sounds like one of those dangerous Republicans who want to stop Democrat-run states from giving health care for free to illegal aliens. In fact, you should probably just get your 9th booster, and then when the myocarditis kicks in, just take Ozempic. That's the solution.
That sounds good. Yeah, because that'll reduce the size of your heart, so the swelling will be less relevant.
Take the cocaine with the
benzo.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So for people that are out there listening to this stuff and you've got family members out there, I've always wanted to ask this question, and I ask it and there's never an answer to it, but just like for your own awareness, kind of a tool in your box. The question is this: did you get the most recent COVID vaccine booster? Have you gotten one every 6 months since they started? If not, when did you stop, and what made you stop getting them? Because that's not an accusation. That's a serious question. You should actually be interested in knowing the answer, right? I mean, this is the Socratic method, but I want to know what changed your mind And do you now agree with me from where I started? Or did something change that has made that happen? And could it have been the thing that happened on Joe Rogan that he's talking about right here? Have you seen this kind of data? Did you have somebody not make it because of it? You ready for a little fun Joe Rogan? Here's another like hardcore Republican, right-wing, unacceptable alpha male. Here he goes. This is Joe Rogan, a Democrat donor. Democrat donor and Democrat voter.
Bernie Sanders is the same as Milton Friedman.
Basically, exactly. Here we go.
Sent Jamie this study, VAERS adjusted data, and other derived from the MIT Florida Department of Health study findings that yield a conservative range of 470,000 to 600,000 American deaths from the COVID-19 mRNA shots.
That's it?
More than, well, just that alone. That's a lot of people, man. More than World War I, World War II, and Vietnam combined. If that's true. It indicates Pfizer, this is Pfizer alone, so this is not even Moderna.
Oh, okay.
Pfizer alone likely killed over 470,000 Americans. They found a 36% increase in all-cause mortality among Pfizer recipients versus Moderna.
Yeah, but they saved millions.
Yeah, I keep hearing that.
Yikes. 470,000 people is a lot. And I love that the guy's like, oh, that's it. And I know he's being a little bit sarcastic, but we're talking about when you start putting in perspective for American losses in wars, the sort of casualties that we had dealt with. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy what happened in this country. And it always ends up coming back to COVID, I think, which is why we end up seeing so much of the, I don't know, like the things that happened in the last 4 years, it will take decades to undo. Yeah. I mean, but you could start by getting rid of the people who did it, like not let them have any more authority.
I think that that's probably a good place to go to, going back to what Jesse Kelly was discussing, the people that need to be held accountable and responsible, and not just in a way that we're being transparent, we're exposing them. They need to be in handcuffs. They need to be put into jail if we're going to have the hope of restoration here, where people who assume a position of public trust, be it in the government, be it in the media, and they purposely misrepresent things, and it ends with people being harmed. There needs to be accountability for that. Particularly, it always goes back to coronavirus. I mean, the numbers are just mind-boggling, especially when you hear things like Scott Atlas talking about how if there was an actual trial of a vaccine and you had like 1 or 2 adverse reactions, then it would immediately be shut down. But now we're talking about in the millions of people.
Steve, the fact of the matter is, when we start talking about numbers, we could get really exciting and we could talk about numbers of what we want to do, because we're not going to see Congress hold them accountable. We're not going to see them defund anything. In fact, what we're going to see is more money, put more money into the pockets of these people. We cannot afford it. We can't afford it, says Ron Johnson. Senate GOP blocks at the House mega bill, the big, beautiful bill. Of course, we need to give the government trillions of dollars more, put us more in debt. Tom Massey has a thing about it. We had a little discussion last night on our call-in show. One of our regular listeners, Renzo, said, you know, I don't like Tom Massey because he has, you know, no solution. He just, you know, pokes at the thing. Kind of the same thing we just heard the leftist media say about RFK Jr. It's heavy on pointing out the problem and light on the solutions, the concrete answers. For me, and you tell me if this is the same thing, Tom Massey is kind of like the Suspendables in so much as he can't solve the problem. There's 435 people in Congress that he represents alongside of, but he can point out the problem, and the fact that nobody else wants to do it, he gets lumped in with the people that are the bad guys. Like, they're like, you vote along with the Democrats because you voted no. You can vote no for lots of reasons.
Yes.
Right?
It's like the opinion polls that say right track, wrong track. And they're saying, look at the wrong track. It's like, yeah, there's communists saying that we're not communist enough.
Right.
All the guy does is say, like, we're driving off of a cliff. And they're saying, well, you have no solution, so we're just going to push the accelerator down harder.
Here he is getting a 90-second moment to just call out the problem and suggesting, as I think is totally reasonable, that one Congress cannot bind a future Congress to a spending limit, which is what they always do. They go, we've capped spending at a time when we're not going to be here so that other people can go and fix that spending. Here he is explaining it. Again, I feel like he's the smartest guy in Congress, not just because he's an engineer, not because he's a builder and understands practical things and has animals and like knows real world stuff, but like he actually seems to understand how the numbers work, which these people, you know, they're AOC numbers. Like they understand tips and bartending, I guess.
Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for 90 seconds.
Well, I'd love to stand here and tell the American people, we can cut your taxes and we can increase spending and everything's going to be just fine. But I can't do that because I'm here to deliver a dose of reality. This bill dramatically increases deficits in the near term, but promises our government will be fiscally responsible 5 years from now. Where have we heard that before? How do you bind a future Congress to these promises? This bill is a debt bomb ticking. Congress can do funny math, fantasy math, if it wants, but bond investors don't. And this week, they sent us a message. Moody's downgraded our credit rating, and the bond investors who buy our debt and finance our debt demanded higher interest rates on the 10-year note, the 20-year note, and the 30-year note. What does this mean? Very soon, the government will be paying $16,000 of interest alone per U.S. family. And what are we telling them? Instead of taking care of that problem, we're going to give you a $1,600 tax break. Under the taxing and spending levels in this bill, we're going to rack up, the authors say, $20 trillion of new debt over the next 10 years. I'm telling you, it's closer to $30 trillion of new debt in the next 10 years. Mr. Speaker, we're not rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic tonight. We're putting coal in the boiler and setting a course for the iceberg. If something is beautiful, you don't do it after midnight. I oppose this bill.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Dang, that feels like by the way, throwing coal in the boiler and then you don't do it after midnight feels like a Steve Friend kind of zing. Yes or no?
Yes. That's my spirit animal. He throws that out there and he gets applause from the Democrats, which is hysterical.
No, the funniest thing is because they want more money spent.
Yes, for the exact opposite reason that he's opposing it, but it's strange bedfellows.
It's so dishonest. It's such a disingenuous and gross situation. I hate it. I really don't like it. It makes me sad. All right, Steve. Let's see. What if we got something else? I'm gonna kick you off and bring on your doppelganger, your happy double. Is that fair? But not right now. Not yet. First, we're gonna drop this clip that I promised I would give the other day, and I actually almost forgot about it. So luckily, I'm remembering it right now. We played it last night, and I kind of like brain dumped it. This is a clip of Kash Patel, the FBI director. Actually, I'm gonna go and put it in the different little. Let me put it in a different slot. He's the FBI director, and it's right after he was confirmed. So this is from February 20th of this year. And I'm going to have to adjust the audio levels on it. He's talking to a room full of people who have supported him, his friends. They are all wealthy individuals. You've seen this clip, yes?
Yes, I have.
I'm going to get your piece right after it. Let's start with this, folks. There's going to be a little snippet. I'm going to jump cut and cut out the applause. Then we're going to go to the beginning of the speech, and about 10 seconds or 20 seconds in, he says it. I'm going to give you the part that I think is relevant. Then I'm going to give you full context so you can understand, and we'll post it over on the on X and some other places so you guys can see it. For those who saw it last night, they did not like it. I think it's relevant to know that Kash Patel may have some conflicting interests in doing his job. And this is a joke, no doubt. But the amount of tone deaf and then the current sort of way that we're seeing it right now says a lot.
And the only reason I took this job was because my business acumen sucks. All these guys have their own private jet, so the only way I was going to get mine was becoming the director of the FBI. And I will do. We owe thanks to all these guys that spoke because they're throwing this awesome party. And it's really hard to talk in this room because you guys are here for a reason. I'm here because of you. It's crazy. We love you. It's wild. And the only reason I took this job was because my business acumen sucks. All these guys have their own private jet, so the only way I was going to get mine was becoming the director of the FBI. And I will do.
And they say, and writing children's books. That's the other thing they said.
A couple things. The uproarious laughter at his joke, and he was joking. The uproarious laughter is the hatred that I feel for that in Washington, D.C. is the exact same hatred that I feel for all of these fake politicians, because it's completely fake. It's not that funny, right? And the tone deafness to drop the joke that the only way I was going to have a private jet was to become the FBI director is on par with Jamil Hill, who got up there and said, look, yeah, true that Jews shouldn't be killed, but why are you even caring about this? Like, they're basically on par with each other at this point. This was a thing. This was one of the big things that the American people got fired up with, right, wrong, indifferent, that Christopher Wray abused the jet. It was something that you brought to the fore because they won't say your name about that or about the Richmond intelligence memo about radical traditional Catholics. You did that, exposed it, and it was used in congressional hearings, again, to try to get lots of viral moments and fundraising and opportunities to go on cable news. But it really pissed off a lot of Americans. And for you to like lean into that the day that you got confirmed, just not smart, not smart. But again, you know, it hasn't been 6 to 8 months yet.
Let me add something else to that you probably don't know. One of the men that is in the view of that camera on that video clip had dinner with me and Kash Patel and another guy, and he is a private jet owner, and spoke sort of disparagingly about Chris Wray flying in a G550 because his jet was like a little bit less expensive. His was like a $40 or a $45 million jet. Chris Wray's was $60 million out the box. And so he was speaking disparagingly about how the guy didn't have the money to fly in one of those things, and he had no business wasting the American taxpayer dollar. And Kash and that individual and I sat at a dinner table in Las Vegas and discussed the amount of fraudulent spending that Chris Wray was engaged in, because he could tell me, this guy who owns a jet, who has to pay for it out of his own pocket and flies all over the country to his different houses and locations and businesses because he's very wealthy. We went to a casino where he said he had $10 million in cash sitting in one of the safes there because he liked to play table games there. That kind of money. And this guy and Kash and I all agreed that the amount of money Chris Wray was spending on each one of those individual flights into Reagan, he told me, he said, look, whenever I want to put my jet down at DCA, it cost me $10,000 in runway fees just to land. Now, it only cost the government $2,500 for a government plane. They have a special discount for government aircraft, but it still cost the American taxpayers $2,500 to go into DCA's pocket. So we spend tons of money. And he was like, there's no way all private jets avoid DCA at all costs because it's crazy expensive to land there. It's way better to go out to the regional areas, which, by the way, is where the jet lived. So I know for a fact that Kash understood how tone deaf it was to be saying those. Then he's saying that funny thing. But what it also made me realize after the fact, and I saw this on the 20th, and I kind of went like, God, I hope that's not a real thing that he's going to keep doing. But what I realized at that moment was that not only did Kash understand what that was, that he actually coveted having a jet like that because he's been proving it. And we've had people tell us that they were offered jobs on the FBI director detail, but part of the contract or part of the verbal agreement is, as a new agent to go out there and be on the detail, you have to agree to go to every UFC fight with him and some of the other kind of like social events that he's going to be attending, flying to Vegas, flying to Nashville. It's not going to be like a hanging out in DC and doing the job that you'd normally expect and then like a bunch of official business. It's going to be a lot of personal travel for the director.
It's, I mean, the interview that we saw over the weekend, I know you've covered down on it all week long. That wasn't the moment that the fight to win the FBI back or to save the FBI was lost. It's just the acknowledgement that was the signing of the peace treaty to end the war. The war is lost.
I feel the same way. But I'm not going to leave everybody with a negative feeling. We're going to do something positive. Steve Friend, you can't run right now, so we're going to show your alter ego who's out there jogging Pacific Beach. If you guys saw it last night, that's fine too. But we're going to play that because it makes me feel really good. There are some really great things you can go out and do. You can protect yourself. You can protect your own fitness. You can go out and shoot. You can do some proactive things where you can take control of the things in your life that you can and the government can't stop you. Do you want to talk about what you guys are doing on the American Radicals that folks can be educated about? And then I'll kick you off because I'm going to bring on your alter ego.
Yeah. Well, join us tomorrow, Saturday, 10:30 Eastern Time, Rumble at rumble.com/amradpod. We're going to be doing a Saturday grab bag, really like focusing in on some of the lies and propaganda, particularly around the climate paganism. So it should be a good time. And then also hope everybody has a safe and blessed Memorial Day weekend. And just take a moment when you're sitting around grilling out by the pool to just reflect on the sacrifices that were made so you could enjoy that.
Yeah, great message. Thank you for joining me again. We missed you last week, so I'm glad to have you back. And we're going to kick you off with that. But thanks for coming on with me this morning.
Thanks, brother.
All right, buddy. All right, folks. This is a one-man show, except when Steve Friend is here. We appreciate you. If you're watching on Rumble and you have not hit the like button, you are wrong. Get it done. If you're over there on YouTube, I see you. There are more than ever showing up every day. YouTube.com/@Kyle Seraphin is how you share that. If you want to do so, make sure you guys are liked and followed and subscribed and notified if you'd like to be doing that. Locals, we're going to have a very interesting interview coming up with a DHS whistleblower about things going wrong and who is subverting the agenda at DHS. You guys are going to want to stick around for that. You can get it early at locals. It's KyleSeraphin.com. And lastly, Spotify. KyleSeraphinShow.com is how you get it if you want to take it on the go. If you want a visual that allows you to switch between audio and video while you're driving so you do not crash into things, then do that. Let's do a little palate cleanse here. I'm going to stay on the screen with this guy. This is, I think, this is what Steve would be like if Steve had not worked at the FBI and just was able to run out in San Diego. I think Steve is a beach type guy. This is my favorite quote unquote prank that this guy turns around on them. Kind of a happy message. Go out and do something physical. You'll feel better. Here we go.
My boy, how long are you running?
We're doing 11 miles today.
11 miles?
Yes, sir.
Heck yeah, brother. What mile are you in right now?
We're 3.3 in right now, so towards the start, just the beginning.
Heck yeah, bro. I've been running around like 3 miles a day.
Let's go,
Honestly,
bro.
11
Let's
miles?
go, bro.
Damn, I've never done that. Do you want to maybe introduce yourself or anything?
Yeah, my name is Ethan. Ethan Wyckoff. Yeah, I love to run here in PB all the time, so yeah. Sure, yeah, sorry, I got music going. What's your name, bro?
He immediately starts interviewing the
We
interviewer.
jump off. What's up? We still going?
Still going.
What's going on? My name's Ethan. We're out here Pacific Beach today. Beautiful day. Hitting a quick 11 miles. God is good. Thankful for a healthy body, healthy mind.
Yep.
Yeah, lots to be grateful for. Get out there, get active. Don't forget to stretch. It's a good day every day. You got to be thankful. You already know. He handed me the mic. I'm taking over, I guess. It's my show right now, but maybe he's catching up. If you're just getting into running, you got to just keep at it, push through the suck. You'll see results quickly. Once you start seeing those results, fall in love with it. It's changed my life, changed my mentality. I used to struggle with addiction, partied a lot, wasn't very healthy. Got into running, got into fitness, absolutely changed my life. So very grateful for running. One of God's greatest gifts. So yeah, we're out here.
There's more of this. There's like 3 or 4 minutes of him. They eventually catch up and tell him it was a prank. Ethan is a bro. That guy's awesome. Like I said last night, he reminds me of my best man from my wedding. Just a super positive dude with a mustache. He's got a tattoo of a cross up on his chest, and he's out there just saying like things that are great. And that's in California. So even the places that are lost, you got stud dudes doing fitness that think God is good. You already know. Grateful for a healthy body and a healthy mind. And then he drops the addiction piece on there. I think a lot of people can relate to that. How cool. Also, very Steve Friend-like. I guarantee you, if I had a stroke while we were doing the Kyle Seraphin show, my man would just pick up and keep running the same way Ethan just did. So anyway, that's motivational for me. It made me want to go back and start running more again. It makes me want to lift more weights. He's probably younger than I am, but how awesome. Anyway, God bless all of you. God is great. Go out there and have a healthy mind, have a healthy body. If you don't, start working towards both those things. You can do it. And a 3-day weekend is a great time to start. Don't just be lazy and sit around. Go out and do something good, and try not to remember all the bad things that are out there. We talk about them so we can know them. We can keep at the forefront, and then we go do things that we can actually handle in our own life. So that's my message for the day. And I appreciate all of you being here. Thanks for joining us. Look forward to hearing from Matt Strickland. Yes, you guys correctly guessed it in the chat out there. Matt Strickland is going to be our DHS whistleblower coming on and talking about the problems over at DHS and who is subverting the Trump agenda. You're going to see that on Sunday. So stick around. Make sure you guys are notifying yourselves for that. God bless. See you soon.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.